Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Meryl Folb. I'm an ISE consultant. Very excited to welcome you to this session. We've got, I think, a really, really interesting panel, or an interesting set of speakers and a really interesting topic, put it that way. So today, I'm very excited to welcome Josh Madison, who's the Future Talent and EVP Manager for Vodafone, Hannah Persson as Senior Account Manager for Bright Network, and Anu Manthri, who's the Head of Business Development at Bright Network. And they're going to be talking to you around attracting diverse STEM talent. I think this is a topic that's always something that of interest to everyone. We're always struggling, we're always trying to broaden our diversity pool, but we're also trying to bring in a greater focus on attracting people from science, technology, engineering, and maths. So very excited to have this session. I'm going to hand over to Anu shortly, but just to let you know, if you do have any questions, please put your questions into the question panel, and we'll either answer them throughout the presentation or leave them towards the end, depending on the sense of urgency, if they're slide specific or anything like that. There will be a poll going through early into the presentation, and it would be great to have you to participate. I'm handing over to you, Anu.
Thanks, Meryl, and hi everyone, happy Friday. For the team listening at the office, hi guys. We are really excited to be on this webinar actually with Josh, who is one of our favourite clients, I'd say, Hannah, at Vodafone. And today we're going to be giving you a really exciting example of exactly how we utilise some of our new tools at Bright Network to help Vodafone attract a diverse cohort of STEM talent. So just a quick agenda of what we're going to be covering today in our webinar. We'll tell you a little bit about us and who we are. I'm sure that some of you have already heard about Bright Network, but we do have some exciting developments to share with you. And we will also be talking about the exciting development that is the Data Insights Engine. We have a great partnership, something I'd like to think of as a long-term committed relationship with Vodafone. We have our challenges, one of them being that we can't always meet or talk to one another, but we exist in order to provide, Josh, and I hope you'll agree, an avenue for you to relieve your headaches and give us the work that we can do to help you meet your recruitment challenges and your recruitment objectives. So exactly what was the challenge in this case? We were looking to work with Vodafone to help attract a really, really diverse pool of talent to the technology graduate scheme. So how we went about doing this, Hannah's going to go through and talk about in a moment, but essentially it was utilising our Data Insights Engine, which is a unique proposition now to Bright Network, and thinking about how we've accurately marketed our partnership and our relationship with Vodafone and exactly what they're trying to achieve to our network. So the actual solution culminated in 2 technology-specific events held by Vodafone at their snazzy offices in Paddington. And what we'll be offering is a chance for you to ask some questions at the end of this webinar. So if you have any at all, please do keep sending them through, and anything we don't pick up today, we can pick up afterwards. So a bit about Bright Network. We exist really to help employers discover their next generation of talent, and I think it's important to note here that everything we do for our members is free. We kind of almost that career service that you might never have had at university, where you can pick up the phone and speak to one of us, ask questions about your career journey, opportunities, and essentially we exist to give our members the best first step in their career. So with all of this in mind, a great first step is with Vodafone, and in order to tell you how or who our members are and how we connected them with Vodafone, I'm going to hand over to Hannah, who's going to take you through who our network are.
So we have a network of over 150,000 members, which we're very proud of. And out of this pool of people, we have 25% of them are science, tech, engineering, and math graduates. So we split these STEM people into hard STEM and into soft STEM. So the soft STEM members are biology students or psychology students, and the hard STEM ones are the techie ones, the engineers. And out of these, 85,000 are undergraduates, And out of all of these, we are very proud that we have 58% females on our network.
And one of the things that we were working with Vodafone is to increase the representation of females. I think, most of the people dialing into this webinar probably understand that there is generally an underrepresentation of women in tech, and exactly how we went about, rectifying that issue, you'll find out in the next couple of slides. But it's not just about women, it's about diversity as a whole. And we're really pleased to say that naturally our network has become incredibly diverse. We now have 40% of our network come from BAME backgrounds, and that's double the percentage that come out of Russell Group institutions each year. And in terms of how we look after our network, how we communicate with them, we have relationships with them from the moment they set foot onto campus to the moment that they leave university. And even then, we've got opportunities where we engage with our pool of alumni. So really exciting to say that we have 10,000 traceable hires. Some of those traceable hires are with Vodafone, which we'll tell you about in a moment. But finally, just on the kind of, the actual brightness of our network. We've done some research and we extensively talk to and communicate with our members. And what we found is that now our members are 47% more likely to get hired than the average graduate at assessment centre. And hopefully that kind of shines through when you see the rest of our case study. So the exciting development that we have been talking about is our data insights engine. So our data insights engine has been built by our tech team in the office. We should do a little shout out to Big Bro, our CTO. He's been building this unique engine that essentially brings together the different data points and the different areas that we use across Bright Network. So we run events, we run digital campaigns, we track what our members are looking at on our website, along with what they're telling us that they're interested in. And this brings together all of that information in a really clear, succinct engine, enabling us to identify candidates not only based on things that they tell us in their personal profile, but going beyond that to identify exactly what a candidate is looking at, what they're consuming and digesting, which means that we can actually place more relevant candidates in front of employers that require them. So I'm going to hand over to Hannah, who's going to tell you a bit more how that works.
Thank you, Anu. So how it works is that when members sign up to our network, we ask them a lot of questions about who they are and the declared data, such as the gender, location, the degree, and personal info. And what we did with this new engine of ours is that we combine the declared data with the behavioral side of things, such as what are they engaging with on our network, what are they opening, what are they clicking on, what are they digesting when they land on our site. So 75% of our traffic is logged in, and then we can track them, what they're doing, and get to know them a bit better when they land on our site. And this not only creates a personalized member experience, but also that gives us greater and higher engagement with everything we do in communication way. And that leads to better matches for roles with our employers.
And I think, just doing the testing, we found that utilizing this behavioral data has just meant that our campaigns are now 10x more effective, because we are actually identifying what candidates really want to hear about and putting the relevant message in front of them. And I think specific to the Vodafone case study that we're going to tell you about, we were able to, for example, find a maths candidate who perhaps was consuming information, advice articles, looking at employers around tech, but may never have considered Vodafone as their choice of employer for whatever reason. So putting the message in front of them, making them understand that, even with your maths degree, you can absolutely apply for a technology role, was one of the ways that we sought to help our members apply to Vodafone. So Vodafone, and feel free to kind of jump in, Josh, at any time. We think we're looking to solve the kind of the following challenges, or have these set objectives. One of the things that we wanted to do was raise brand awareness amongst the undergraduate population of, Vodafone is a huge tech employer. And I wonder if we could just flip to Josh briefly, just to kind of, give his view on how he's found general brand awareness and any kind of challenges that Vodafone have had.
Josh, are you there?
Maybe we lost Josh.
I can still see Josh, but I'm going to see if I can make him a presenter, but we might lose the slide, but let's see. Josh, can you hear us?
I mean, we know Josh is a busy man. So.
Josh, hi. Oh, you were there, now you've...
It's fine. We can continue until we've found Josh again. Something that Hannah and I have learned is that, you know, he's an incredibly busy guy, and you know, whatever we can do to make his life easier,
Absolutely.
we do. So, flicking back to our
Hello.
objective. Oh, there you are. Hi.
Hi, Josh.
Hi guys. Apologies. Not sure what happened. Thank you and you for handing over. It doesn't matter. I can't see the slides anyway. We can carry on. Can you still hear me?
We can hear you, Josh, loud and clear.
Okay,
Josh,
good.
About some of our objectives. So obviously raising brand awareness and interest and engagement with specific, you know, Bright undergraduates is really important. But can you kind of give your take on any of the objectives that we might have had, and you know, how Vodafone's found specific challenges with recruiting from underrepresented groups?
Yeah, it's a good point. So I've been enrolled for probably 10 months now, but I was actually a graduate myself before, taking the opportunity to look after kind of wider youth at Vodafone. So I'm kind of aware of some of the challenges myself from a candidate perspective, as well as on the other kind of side. But I think Vodafone globally has a really, really strong brand. We're a fantastic company. I think our brand differs in terms of perception depending on what country you're in. And particularly in the UK, I think if you, and we do a lot of this research with a lot of graduates, if you ask them kind of what the first things that come to mind when you speak to them about Vodafone, quite often is probably the very first touch interaction they get in retail stores, customer centres. It's all about mobile, which of course is a massive part of the business. But given Vodafone's kind of wider, I suppose, products and services range, it really is a global tech company. And I think that was the whole kind of purpose for us, is how do we make that perception slightly shift in the UK and make people more aware that, you know, the Internet of Things, for example, which is a really cool kind of thing that's changing the world, Vodafone is a global leader. And that's sometimes a message that gets lost with a lot of the youth in terms of graduates at university as well. So we're very keen to make sure we change this message. And we've worked obviously quite well, as Anu said, we've got a really good partnership with Bright Networks to try and convey some of those messages, and then on top of that, convey those messages in a way that's also attractive to certain segments of that population. And of course, as we're talking here in particular, trying to attract more female candidates from STEM backgrounds into STEM careers with us. We have a really supportive ambition within the company to have minimum 50% representation across our graduate programs for just in tech, so 50% women, 50% male. This is something that goes all the way up to senior leadership as well, so we were really keen to make sure that we start to change this perception, and this started to happen. Obviously a wider campaign, but especially with the Bright Networks partnership as well, we were able to talk about some of the stories and the kind of direct access we got with them. And even thinking back now, I know Bright Networks used to sort of talk about some of the stories on the phone. So it wasn't always about digital and just pure engagement via emails and newsletters, etc. It was a lot more than that. There was more of a concierge service, which felt a little bit more personal, where we could connect that audience with the relevant stories.
Thanks, Josh. That's really helpful. And I think, you know, it's no easy feat trying to engage an already kind of small pool of female STEM candidates with you know, a tech giant, as you say, but actually given the introduction you've just given Vodafone as, you know, that global kind of tech leader, I know that we utilised a lot of that messaging and kind of, you know, different approaches that we'll show you on the next couple of slides. But just carrying on with the rest of our objectives, we really kind of work to drive application for this in-house event. And you know, it's really exciting to have an in-house event within an employer because you get to get a feel for the offices. And we've done some research on how, you know, there's a huge percentage, I think it's like something like 82% of our members now who really kind of, you know, value that first interaction and meeting employers before they make their applications. And again, just focusing on that representation of women was really kind of a focal point for us. And we're going to talk to you about the fairly agile and flexible time frame in which we delivered that campaign. But finally, just to kind of cover off what we're going to be doing, just talking about our technology and enterprise events that we ran with you and generated candidates for. So the actual solution then. We ran a very targeted brand activation campaign, which really put Vodafone front and centre with underrepresented groups, and utilising a multitude of channels. And we think this was something that, you know, we tried and tested with Vodafone for the first time. So it was a bit of testing on both parts, a bit of faith, you know, lots of hard work, mainly from Hannah and Josh probably, but I'm going to let Hannah take over and tell you about our approach.
So we worked together closely with Vodafone and Josh's team in finding a way on how to get around this challenge that we had in getting people to, or members to, the events that we want to run. And we then came up with the plan to use different channels that we know worked well with this underrepresented group of women, of STEM women. And from our testing, we knew that what channel to use at what stage in the process. So during, was it 5 to 6 weeks or something before the event?
I believe it was 4
weeks,
because Josh loves to keep us on our toes.
So
Yes.
in these 4 weeks, we created highly targeted and personalized email campaigns, and based on the insights that we could get from our insight engine and what kind of content members had engaged with on our website. We helped Vodafone create different articles and interviews with leaders at Vodafone, and then we had a look at who engaged with that content, and then we reached out to those people and through email campaigns, but also we did a talking to talent activation campaigns with help from our in-house team. Shout out to you guys in the office.
Hey, talent team.
Who helped us on the phones with engaging our members who had shown an interest with Vodafone, talking to them, asking them questions. We know from our research that women are 56% more likely than men to abandon an application due to lack of confidence. We wanted to have that conversation with them and asking them, giving them a chance to ask us questions about Voda, about the grad program or anything. And then further down the line, closer to the event, we wanted to keep them warm so they felt like we were there the entire way and not left in the dark.
And I think, you know, just on that candidate journey point, it's quite unique to this campaign that we utilised our fabulous kind of talent team. Like, you know, really big shout out to you guys, because you were the ones on the phones regularly with our members. But actually this kind of talking to talent campaign is particularly important, just as Hannah said, with our female members. We know that confidence is a huge thing. That means that, you know, women are less confident when submitting applications. They're more likely to abandon applications. So having that extra person on the phone who's really impartial, giving you advice on, you know, what's going to happen on the day, who you're going to meet, it's just a really friendly way, a friendly service to engage our members. So a bit of information and research that we've taken from our recent research report, What Graduates Want, which you can download online, is just down at the right hand side. So we mentioned earlier that 82%, I did get that stat right, 82% of our members feel it's important to meet a firm before submitting an application. We find this is particularly so with our diverse groups. Our members are like crazy about meeting a firm to understand the people and culture, and I think that's a real focus now for graduates when choosing a role. And just looking to the digital campaign that we run, we know that 53% of our members will digest a personalised email and then apply. So really kind of making sure that there were several touch points with the tap on the shoulder of the email, the regular reminders within the newsletters, the different content that was very kind of varied to the standard content that you might see. And then finally, the phone call really encouraged those groups to not only apply, but see it through the whole way. And then a really interesting one, because diversity is very much on our radar, is we found that our LGBTQ community students are 67% more likely than average to reject an offer because they receive a better application experience somewhere else, which just goes to show how important candidate journey and customer experience is to graduates nowadays. They are kind of thinking about this and understanding where they've had that best experience. So I'm sure you're all very excited to see the results, and here they are. There's a lovely picture of the event in action, but we also have a bit of detail on exactly what the event marketing was, the results of what we saw, and then finally the hires that we saw for this event. Josh, I'm going to hand over to you, because I think, having been at the event and presented at the event, talk about what happened on the day.
Yeah, of course. So I think one of the things Bright Networks was really helpful with is making sure that this event was something a little bit different than to what we had done previously. So I think with any campaign, you use data and insights during to kind of flex and potentially change how you're doing future assessment centres. And what we realised quite often was that we were seeing a lot of, I suppose, drops in terms of engagement, because we had particular tests, etc., which were almost at the first point of contact. So we, as Vodafone, we were talking between ourselves of what could we do differently, particularly to engage a certain population. And we were talking to Bright Networks as well, and we kind of came up with this joint idea to just have more of a half engagement, half assessment day. So we kind of would push them through to this particular day, have half of it more around giving them more of an insight into Vodafone, panel conversations, etc., which I'll provide some more detail in a moment. And then in the afternoon, they would have the opportunity to go through some form of an assessment process, but having had the first half of the day, were very much kind of bought into what the process is, and they actually got a bit more guidance and tips and felt more comfortable when they were going to be assessed. It felt a lot more casual and relaxed for them. As you would hope with any sort of graduate assessment, it's more of a two-way assessment. So we had, like I said, a number of things. I think we had a panel of about 10 of our female kind of directors and tech leaders, as well as some senior managers, particularly actual female tech leaders that would spend, I think it was 45 minutes just asking some questions, talking about their careers, some challenges they face and how they got to where they are today, which was really, really useful, and some great insights that I don't think a lot of these graduates will often get. We did some kind of more helpful tips and guidance sessions around personal brands and the importance around that. We had some really nice coaches come from the business to do this. We had a few games as well, a bit around some coding that we taught them to help just kind of give them something to take away. And then in the afternoon was where we kind of put them in a very casual but like a nice important interview situation with some of our sort of senior business partners. And I think what we saw from the day actually was that all of the candidates were a lot more engaged. Of course, Bright Networks did a fantastic job beforehand to kind of manage them throughout that process and give them that personal touch, as I was saying earlier on. But they were a lot more engaged when they'd gone through this engagement piece in the morning. And then in the interviews, I think we really saw some of the confidence coming through. And this is something we'd witnessed wasn't really happening at some of the other assessment centres, is that while we'd created an overall experience, it wasn't as engaging for them. It didn't feel as personal. It felt like the usual kind of run-of-the-mill machine assessment centres that quite often happen when you recruit big numbers. And I think then the feedback we got from sort of HR business partners and assessors across the business were that the candidates were brilliant. The quality was very high. The answers they were giving to particular questions and the kind of insight and experiences they will be able to bring through were really, really strong. And I actually remember attending this first event at the end and having one of the business partners tell me how at least two of the candidates were probably some of the best candidates she's seen in the last 4 or 5 years from a graduate point of view, which was a real positive story, because being completely transparent, doing this sort of event in April, May, and I think the last one was only very recently, last month in June, is late in the graduate campaign. So we weren't always aware of whether we would get the right quality candidates, knowing that people tend to do stuff very early, but the quality we saw was fantastic. And I think this is probably a lesson that we've learned. Next year, we're going to do a mixture of the usual assessment centres, but more of these then targeted kind of engagement days that really help bring more of a personal touch, particularly where we have challenges to sort of hire and recruit certain populations.
And Josh, Connor and I have absolutely loved working on this event, and like we said earlier, it was quite an interesting trial for us that I think we've refined as we've gone through event 1 and event 2. But just a bit more information on event 2. So you mentioned the 12 hires and what lovely feedback from your HR business partner, but actually event 2 was I'd say a bit more of a challenge for us, and we're not going to hide that, because the time frame was definitely more tight and it was recent. So I imagine the main challenge was that many of our members had already secured roles, so really like pulling their interest into a technology graduate program with Vodafone at that point was more tricky. However, kind of, again, the results of Hannah's team, really kind of hats off to you guys, pulling in a few less members than the first event. So we had 16 attendees on the day, so a turnout of around 62%. But however, of those 16, you saw some great kind of potential in 11 of those, and so that makes a total of 11 hires for that day. Any kind of further comments on the second event, Josh?
I mean, I think it was very similar in terms of the setup. So the one thing we did was we learned how successful it was from the previous one, so we kind of replicated that. And of course, and as you said, the later you go and the more candidates we start to kind of hire, the pool was getting smaller and smaller. But again, just because it was getting smaller didn't necessarily mean that the quality wasn't there, which I think sometimes is a necessary kind of thought you have, is if there's a smaller pool, probably all the candidates are going to be less likely to be good quality. But we saw just as much. And I think one of the key things we have in Vodafone is that even though we have diversity, kind of ambitions, that at the end of the day, quality is something that we will never compromise on. And this was obviously a real positive then to see 11 out of 16 on the day have very similar feedback. So we always was sort of key to make sure our more senior HR business partners and even head of sort of HR areas quite often were the ones assessing, because they're used to really deep diving into someone's potential, which is obviously that we look for in the program, and making sure that they have the right behaviours we're seeing internally, and do they match our kind of culture. But again, the quality was really, really high, especially this kind of late on. Again, similar strong answers. Go on, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And I think just on that subject of kind of, fewer attendees on the day, I know there were, a few kind of worried moments between Hannah and I. However, it is good to see that, what we like to say at Bright Network is that we don't want to get any of our employers kind of more applications. I don't think anyone's after more applications. It's more about how do we utilize that data insights engine, that tool, to really identify who's most likely to really accept that offer or make that offer and stick within that pipeline because of the relevance of that role. And I think, utilizing that really meant that we had the right people with you on the day, which goes to show that you don't need huge numbers in order to get great success. So yeah, that event was probably one of our favorites, I say.
Absolutely.
So I think that is about it in terms of wrapping up. I know one of the things that we haven't really mentioned is, but it is on the slide and available, kind of like, the methods and the detail of what we did. Hannah's already talked about the targeted emails, but generally, even though this was quite a late set campaign to females interested in STEM, so, just that easy task, we did see some great opening rates of around 46% to our email marketing, which again, I think is down to a variety of different testing that we use, which meant that because of that engagement, we could get those members there on the day. So I believe that's everything from us. Josh, I know you need to head off at 1, but we might have some time for some quick questions. I'm just going to pop up a few comments of what people said on the day, but again, we can kind of like share this with you after the webinar. And then in terms of like, a couple of success stories that you can see on your screen from some of our members that we create and collect are available. But any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Whilst we wait to see if anyone does ask a question, I do have one, which is, I was fascinated by the fact that the very high percentage of applicants who preferred not to sorry, I've just gone blank on the word, who preferred not to basically admit or identify themselves in terms of diversity. What do you think is creating that? I mean, what more can companies do where applicants would feel safe to say, I am this person, or I do fit into that category, and that type of thing? Because I thought it was quite a high percentage. I think I saw 34% the first slide and 36% the second slide.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we can take that to start with. Generally across the board, we encourage our students to be really open with any of their diversity metrics. Like I said, we never started or set up to become a diversity kind of, platform, and we certainly are not just a diversity platform, but one of the things that we focus on with our underrepresented groups is encouraging them to be as open and feel as though they can share that information, because a lot of the time when you share that information, you enable us to or our employers to make really clear or understand actually how you perform across the variety of kind of different pipelining stages. So what we do is encourage them to be as open as possible. However, you know, we completely appreciate that some people don't want to share that information, and so that's completely fine. Yeah. Hannah, do you think there's anything further on that one?
No, I think you're completely right. I think it all comes down to confidence, like we talked about earlier, and then encouraging them to tell us that data, but that, I think that, like I said, it's all down to us to work on that.
Josh, are you still there? I don't know if you've run off to your meeting yet.
I am. I just wanted to say goodbye though, because I do have to run, unfortunately.
Great.
But thank you for the opportunity. And it was
Josh,
great speaking.
we just wanted to thank you. And have a great meeting and a lovely Friday.
Happy Friday, Josh.
Bye, guys.
Bye. I do have a question from Julie Moran. She wanted to know, what is the difference between hard STEM and soft STEM?
That's a great question. I think Hannah covered it off earlier, but Hannah, over to you.
Yes, so we split STEM into two. So we have hard STEM and soft STEM. So soft STEM would be biologists or psychology students, and then the hard ones are more techie, math, engineering, the engineering side of things. Do you want it?
Yeah, I think the only thing to add on that, you know, is basically we are really interested in providing the right candidates to our employers. A lot of people say that they're looking for STEM candidates, but, you know, for specific programs, you might study maths, but then also have a serious passion for coding. You might be in coding societies, or, you know, just generally love tech, or be very, like, you know, have a digital mindset. So we're able to track and basically pull all that information so that even if you're not hard STEM, we can still target some of the soft STEM, knowing that they've still got the capability to function well in something like the Vodafone Technology Graduate Programme. It's just a really nice internal way that we use at Bright Network to identify who are, you know, the people who are like tech, STEM, engineering focused, and then the people who might be really relevant for those roles but not have perhaps the same kind of degree. I hope that answers your question, Julie.
I have one more question, which is, do you go out as Bright Network onto campus, or do you go out as Vodafone onto campus?
That's a really good question. So we've actually not gone out as Vodafone on campus, but we are incredibly integrated with Vodafone when they come along to our Bright Network events. In fact, they're coming along to one of our Women in Technology, Engineering, Consulting events this September, and our Bright Network Festival. When we go on campus, the team that go out on campus, head up by Ben, hi Ben, our marketing kind of manager, we go out as Bright Network because we are, you know, a hugely kind of impartial and objective careers service for them. That being said, there are different partnerships you can kind of go ahead with, so we can fully integrate with your team, go out to campus, generate some like exciting leads, run assessment centers for you, you know, a variety of things that I won't bore you about right now, but it's a mixture.
Great, thank you. I haven't received any more questions, so I'm going to say thank you very much to Josh in his absence, as well as to Hannah and Anu. I think this has been a great session, great to hear from an employer in terms of what works for them, how things have transformed the process, and also a great message to show that you can recruit late as well. You know,
it's definitely not easy.
Life as a head of graduate programs, and it's good to know that you can still find great talent that your business is talking about. And I think that was a really important message from Josh, is that he had feedback from his business saying these were great candidates that they were finding, and I feel the same way. I think you made the comment earlier, no one wants lots of applications, you just want good applications. So I would take 5 good applications over 100 average cap applications. So really fantastic to sort of hear that. Thank you, Anu and Hannah. Been great to host you here at Plexel's offices as well. I think Anu's got one more thing to say.
I just wanted to ask Meryl, where can our wonderful ISE members find a recording of this video afterwards?
Yeah. So we will be downloading this this afternoon or tomorrow morning, and then we will upload it onto the ISE website early next week, I would say. So if you do have any questions, you can always contact the ISE team. Usually it's events@ise.org.uk that you would have had the contact details from for this webinar, so you can always email that. Anna will take care of your answers. And yes, you can download it as many times as you want, or listen to it as many times as you want, to put it that way. And I think, Anu, I'm also planning to give you a copy, and people might be able to visit the Bright Network website as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely, we'll make it available, and I think just a testament to the success with Vodafone that we've had. So thank you very much, Meryl.
Thank you, Meryl.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of the sun. Apparently, the heat wave is going away for 2 days now. So,
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.